My grandpa collected nickels and passed from lung cancer when I was very young. Ever since then, he's sent my family nickels. My grandma and her children, my mom and aunts and uncles find nickels in the oddest of places, places where nickels have no right to be. One day a few years ago, my mom was joking with my grandma about this. So typical of Dad, she said. He was always a cheapskate. If he really loved us, he'd send us quarters. Later that day, she went to clean out the gutters and found a shiny new quarter waiting for her on her roof. My Shih Tzu Jack Bauer and I have been tight for a while. I got him 10 years ago, and since I've added a wife, another dog, a cat, and 4 kids. However, my Shih Tzu and I are main homies. He knows who my favorite is. We have this weird relationship where I can sense what he wants before he barks or even looks at me. The wife gets weirded out by it, but I think that's just jealousy of our connection. The other day, however, Jack Bauer and I took things to a new level. This was off the wall. Bauer was passed out on his back on the couch beside my daughter who was doing her COVID homework. I went into the kitchen to do the dishes. About 20 minutes later, as I was finishing up, I see Bauer right beside me staring at me. I give him a few pets on his noggin. I know that look. He wants water, so I pour him a cool drink. Yet as I drop the water bowl, Bauer is nowhere in sight. This is weird. Bauer never leaves me until he gets what he wants, and he wants water. I start looking around for him, and lo and behold, he's passed out on his back on the couch in his favorite position beside my daughter. I ask her if he's moved, and as I do, he snores, byproduct of having no snout. My daughter doesn't know what I'm talking about. He hasn't moved, and regardless, he's too old and fat to get up and down the couch without help anyway. It gets weirder. Well, I figure I know my dog because we have that connection and all, so I should wake him up and see if he's thirsty. I take him to the water bowl and, lo and behold, he was parched. He drank the whole bowl of water and then grabbed a snack. The only rational conclusion I can think of is that Astral Bauer let me know that Material Bauer was thirsty. 5 years ago, my best friend died within a 2-week span unexpectedly. We had a wake for him following the service at a friend's house in the country. I'm sitting in a lawn chair just before dusk, my first drink in my hand. There was a guy taking photos of everyone, and I happened to look over at a group with 5 guys in back, 4 in front getting their photo taken by the corner of the house about 15 to 20 yards away. I looked over to see who I might know, and in the back row on far left was my deceased best friend, wearing a red shirt, with his arms crossed, with a big smile on his face. I looked down to put my drink down, looked back up, and he was gone. I said nothing that night to anyone, but it had rattled me. The next day I called one of our friends, Keith, who had known him for many years, and I told him something was bothering me, that I had seen my friend last night. He answered, "You mean over by the corner of the house, back row on left, in back row of the guys getting their picture taken, in the red shirt smiling at you with his arms crossed, and when you looked back he was gone?" I saw him too. To this day I have no explanation, but I don't doubt that there is another plane of existence after this one, and that image has brought me peace over the years. For a bit of context, my eyesight is horrible. Even half a foot in front of my face is nothing but blurry color. Yesterday, my mom and brother picked me up to go to an appointment. I was running a little late, so didn't have time to put my contacts in or do my makeup, and was getting ready on the drive. So while Mom was driving, I was in the passenger seat with the mirror down. I took off my glasses to apply my eyeshadow. My brother, who was sitting behind me, asked me a question and I turned to look back at him. When I turned my head back around, I quickly finished my eyeshadow and shut the mirror. I was looking out of my window at the farmland just off the road and thinking how beautiful it was when I suddenly realized that I hadn't put my glasses back on. They were sitting on the dashboard. As soon as I had the realization, my perfect vision went back to being just blurred colors. It was instant, like flipping a switch on my sight. It was so shocking that I yelled. My outburst startled my mom and brother, so I told them what had just happened, and they said they believed me but couldn't think of a rational reason for it. We tried to figure it out for the rest of the drive, but honestly couldn't. To be honest, if there's some secret to magically fixing my eyesight that I accidentally stumbled upon, then I wish I could find it again. So this actually happened last week. It just took me some time to come to terms with it. I got a phone call from my next door neighbor late in the evening, asking if I can help him move a mattress into his upstairs. His mom is ill and has a big heavy sleep number bed. I of course ran over to help because they're great neighbors. I get over there and his friend, who is also a priest, was there to help. I helped them figure out how to separate the mattress from the bed so we could fit it upstairs. We get it all moved up and back in place when my neighbor asks if I can help them move an armoire upstairs too. I think nothing of it and we pull it out of his travel trailer and start bringing it up the front stairs of his house. This is where I died. The front stairs are 11 steps. I was on the lower end of the armoire, about 6 steps up when my neighbor and his friend lose a handle on the armoire and it comes crashing down on me and I fall backwards towards the pavement. I then wake up in my dining room to my phone ringing and my wife asking me if I'm going to answer the phone. It's my neighbor asking me if I can help move a bed upstairs for his mom. I go over there and meet his priest friend again, as this has been the first time I met him. I say I can help with the bed, but I cannot help with the armoire. My neighbor was like, "How do you know about the armoire?" I then proceeded to tell them I'm pretty sure I just died. I spent the next hour talking with the priest. He had so many questions. My neighbor didn't believe it until I described the upstairs bedroom in perfect detail, down to the metal mattress frame on the floor and the intricate headboard leaning against the wall, and I had never been upstairs in their house before. The priest asked me what I saw after I died. I told him I never actually died. Before it happened, I woke up at my dining room table. TLDR. I experienced my death but woke up alive about 20 minutes earlier in my life. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. It's not a massive city, but our metropolitan area is home to about 1 million people, so it's not a small city either. For something like 5 to 6 years, I'd run into the same guy in the most random of places. He was a very plain, normal-looking guy. Usually wore a hat, t-shirt, brown hair, usually had on a coat. Maybe 6 feet tall, white. But yeah, a very plain looking white dude with no real features that would scream, "Oh, it's the guy with the purple afro," or whatever. We ran into each other several times a year, maybe at least every few months. Anyway, every time we would pass each other at a store, park, concert, whatever, we'd just do the thing all Omaha people do when they make eye contact. Kinda nod at each other politely and keep moving. After literally years of these chance run-ins, I could tell that he had become aware of it too. We'd start giving each other a kind of knowing look like, "This is weird, you're that dude I always see." We never spoke, just kinda smirked at each other knowingly. I'm not really an introverted guy in particular, but for some reason I never had the guts to just say something to the guy. I mean, despite my opinion and hunch that he was thinking the same thing as me, I always wondered what the hell I would say to him, so I just never said anything. Things got really weird when we'd run into each other in different cities than Omaha. 2 times in fact, KC and LA, and both times we just passed each other and looked equally perplexed as usual. The last time I saw him was at a Walmart near the self-checkout. I was walking out of the store past that little warmer machine where you can buy the pre-cooked rotisserie chicken, and he was just entering the store. We passed each other, smirked, nodded, and kept going. I almost came close to muttering a hey, but for some reason didn't. After that, I promised myself I'd approach him and chat the next time. Since then, I haven't seen him again, and that was about 3 to 4 years ago. I can go into more detail, but wanted your opinion on the phenomenon. I'm sure someone has a phrase coined for it. I live over an hour away from my old hometown, so I call my mom every 2 weeks to discuss the news about everyone that I don't see often. Before summer started, I called her and asked about my sister. She told me her dog, whose name is Honey, had unfortunately passed away. I was so upset about this news, as she was a wonderful sheepdog with so much personality that I really bonded with for many years. I remember shedding tears about it, and after I got off the phone, I told my boyfriend about how upset I was to hear the news. I then called my sister and we reminisced about her dog and talked about where she was burying her, etc., and how her son was really sad. Fast forward to Thanksgiving at my parents' house a couple of weeks ago. My sister and her husband had gone out of state to spend the holidays with her in-laws, so she left her dogs with my parents to watch while they were away. I walk into my parents' house only to find Honey, healthy as can be, sitting in a dog bed in my parents' living room. I laid on the floor to give her tons of love and asked my mom why she had told me Honey passed away. She had no idea what I was talking about. I was floored, just laying there petting her and just loving on her a ton, totally in disbelief. I took her outside and threw the ball for her for 30 minutes at least. When my boyfriend and I were driving home, I mentioned it to him, and he said he was glad I brought it up because he absolutely remembers me discussing it with him. This isn't a very interesting story, but I just have to share. It's been bothering me for some time now. First, a little bit of background. I go into work right around 2 p.m. and get out around 8:30 p.m. I always take the same route to and from work. Also, I've been working at this particular store for about 6 months. Well, one day about a month and a half ago, I started feeling really weird while I was at work. Almost like I was there, my body was there, but my mind was somewhere else. It started about 2 hours before my shift ended. I thought, okay, kind of weird, but I was taking cold medicine at the time and figured it was just that messing with my head. Until my drive home. On this particular night, I got out of work a little late. My DM came in because we had to unplug and shut down everything in the store so the city could do some kind of energy whatnot or other. I don't remember the details. I just know that if we didn't unplug everything, the stuff would get fried. So I'm driving home about 20 minutes later than usual, and my anxiety starts building to the point where I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack, and the feeling of being there but not there starts to get worse. That's when I see it. As I said before, I take the same route every day to and from work. But as I went down the road, I looked to my left and saw this big semiconductor plant all lit up that had never freaking been there before. I pulled over on the side of the road, freaking the F out. I know for a fact it had never been there before, and it's really hard to miss driving home in complete darkness with a huge lit up power plant. You didn't even have to look for it, couldn't miss it. I sat there for a minute until I had calmed down a bit, trying to reassure myself it had always been there. I just wasn't paying attention. I'm not going crazy, I probably just hadn't seen it before. A few minutes later, my boyfriend called me and asked if I could pick up some McDonald's for him. Sure, not a problem. I passed by one on my drive home. The feeling of anxiety and not being there started to fade until I pulled into the drive-thru, ordered my food, and then a worker I had never seen before was sitting at the front window. I asked him how long he'd been working there. He said about 2 months now. Now I'm really freaking out. I came to this place nearly every day for months, at varying times throughout the day. Even weirder yet, he was the only worker there that night. I'm sure there's an explanation for that part, but it sure didn't help me feel any better after discovering a new power plant just popped up out of nowhere about 20 minutes earlier. I proceed to go home and have a full-blown panic attack, curled in a ball, shaking, crying, hyperventilating, the whole deal. I told my boyfriend about the power plant I'd seen, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's always been there. How have you not seen it before?" And now, every day, I look at that damn place and freak out a little bit, because I know it was never there before. Since then, I've noticed tiny little details about my life are just slightly different, like my dog not knowing tricks she's known since she was a pup, or my boyfriend pronounces a few words differently than he did before. The only explanation I can come up with is that I accidentally slipped into an alternate reality while on my drive home from work. I know it's hard to believe, but when I was 16, walking outside with a friend, I literally saw the sky rip open, and it was like I was looking into another dimension or galaxy. It was way too big to be an aurora, and definitely not fireworks. Can't even describe it, but it seemed like something from a movie. I asked my friend if he sees that, and he didn't say anything, he just kept staring at it. It disappeared in like 2 minutes and I was in awe but terrified. He just went home and wouldn't respond to me. Guess it was traumatizing for him because I asked the next day to prove it to my sister that I wasn't just seeing things, and he just said he didn't want to talk about it. That was still a really cool experience. Made me feel like there is still more to this physical life and laws we don't know. I think, in a little sense, my optimism for it to be possible manifested it, but I don't know. This is a story that haunts me daily. This happened in 1992. I had just graduated high school and was working in a warehouse. I kinda enjoyed it and settled, thinking, I will probably retire here. Yep, I had zero ambition. I was a sad, lazy, cringe-inducing person. A new guy started. It's a warehouse with high turnover, so nothing unusual about new guys, and everyone asked if we were related because we looked alike. He was probably late 30s, early 40s, and I was 18 at the time, and he was fatter. He seemed to carry himself like me, the way he walked and spoke. His second day, we worked together on a wrapping station, and the first thing he said to me was, "You still have that Penthouse magazine under your mattress?" I did. Weird, but totally normal for teen boys, I suppose. He then said, "I know everything about you. You are worried about never getting a girlfriend." I was floored, but I again thought it was a usual teenage thing. I mean, I wasn't the best looking guy, so I guess it wasn't a stretch to guess. Probably the start of bullying and the end of my job, as one thing I liked most about myself is that I have no problems fighting anyone, anywhere, anytime. No matter how big or how many, I was always down. I never won, but could take a beating, and the person usually quit and never messed with me again. I asked him why he was saying all this. And he looked at me, and his expression is seared into my mind and left an image I see daily. He said, "I am you." He then went on to tell me everything about myself. I mean my deepest, darkest secrets that no one knows. Then he kept telling me more about myself. Then we went to lunch and were outside smoking, and yup, same brand Camel-Wide regulars. Hard to find where I lived, so I never seen anyone else smoking them. I asked him to be serious and how he knew all this. He said, "I already told you, Tom Tihawk. Tom Tihawk is a nickname only one person called me, and he was my dad's friend I barely saw." A crappy Jetta pulled into the parking lot and he said, "That's our girl. She is a demon who is horrible to us." I asked him why he is with her and he said, "She is the best we could do." When she got out, she was disgusting looking. I mean, trashy would be too kind, and she waddled over to us. She said, "Let's go." Before he left, he stared right into my soul and said, "We deserve better. Please go to college and stop being lazy and make something out of yourself." Trailer Park Girl just kind of laughed like, "Yeah, right." He left with her and I never saw him again. I think I ran into a younger version of her at a friend's house years later and he introduced me and said we should hook up. I said, "No." I went to college and stopped being a pathetic, lazy cringe fest. I accomplished everything I set out to do, as I always felt the need to not let him down. I know none of this makes sense. How can I explain something that I can barely understand myself? None of it makes sense whatsoever, like why would a future me get a job with me? He had to fill out a job application and have his references checked, right? Yes, I asked my manager who was a POS, who just told me to mind my own business and focus on my job and to try to be less of a screw-up. Has anyone had something like this happen to them? It's haunted me daily since. I am 48 and have not seen any time travel machines. Help me out here, maybe end this once and for all. My dog that died over 6 years ago joined me for dinner. It's 8:10 and I'm still eating dinner as I write this. I am not intoxicated. As I'm eating cheese sticks, I hear a crackling of the kitchen floor, but I don't hear anyone moving around. I keep eating and a few moments later I swear my dog was just at the side of the table begging for food. Now, when we got this dog from the pound, she was big. We had to slim her down and we used to call her Keg, but every Christmas I would give her a little bit of what I'm eating, just a little gift. I think she showed up this Christmas. I'm still in shock because it was so vivid, but I'm happy.